This is not the theory everyone is already talking about with Danny and Charlotte trying to take Brennan down. I think General Hospital could go much darker. What if Brennan uses them as bait and Kai becomes the one who accidentally pulls the trigger? I need to say this right away. This has not happened yet on General Hospital, but if the writers are even thinking about going in this direction, I am already emotionally unprepared. Because what if the real shock coming is not Danny Morgan and Charlotte Cassadine teaming up to take down Jack Brennan? What if the real twist is that Kai accidentally becomes the person who kills Brennan? And I do not mean in some cold, calculated, revenge-driven way. I am talking about a nightmare scenario where Kai walks into the wrong place at the worst possible time, sees Danny and Charlotte in danger, panics, grabs a gun, and makes one split-second decision that changes everything. I'm sorry, but that idea has soap opera chaos written all over it. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more this possible storyline could be way more shocking than the obvious route. Because the obvious route would be Danny and Charlotte plotting against Brennan. We can all see how that could happen. Danny blames the WSB. Charlotte fears losing Valentine again. Both of them have emotional reasons to hate Brennan. That story makes sense. But Kai? Kai being pulled into this mess as the accidental trigger man? That is different. That is the kind of twist where I would pause the episode and go, wait, did General Hospital really just do that? Now, let me be clear. I am not saying this is confirmed. I am not saying Brennan is definitely dying. I am not saying Kai is definitely going to shoot anybody. This is a theory. This is speculation. This is me looking at the emotional pieces on the board and wondering if the writers might be setting up something darker than we expect. Because right now, Brennan has enemies everywhere. Carly does not trust him. Valentine has every reason to want him gone. Nina is getting pulled into the conflict. Danny is angry because Jason has been dragged into dangerous WSB-related chaos. Charlotte is terrified Brennan could take Valentine away from her again. So, naturally, fans may expect Carly or Valentine to be the ones who finally bring Brennan down. But what if that is exactly why it should not be them? What if the most shocking version of this story is that the adults are all plotting, spying, threatening, and strategizing, but the disaster actually happens because the kids get caught in the middle? That is the part that gets me. Because Danny and Charlotte are not just random teenagers. They are connected to two of the most complicated men in Port Charles. Danny is Jason Morgan's son. Charlotte is Valentine Cassadine's daughter. These kids have inherited trauma, danger, secrets, and enemies they did not ask for. And if Brennan wanted to manipulate the situation, would he go after Carly directly? Maybe. Would he go after Valentine directly? Absolutely. But would he also use Danny and Charlotte as emotional pressure points? Hate to say it, but yes, I can see it. Imagine this. Danny gets a message that makes him think Jason is in trouble. Maybe it is vague. Maybe it sounds urgent. Maybe it is just convincing enough to make Danny act before thinking. And Charlotte gets a separate message that makes her think Valentine is about to be taken away again. Maybe it sounds like a warning. Maybe it sounds like her father needs her. Maybe it is designed to hit her exactly where she is most vulnerable. Neither of them thinks they are walking into a trap. They think they are protecting their fathers. And that is what makes this theory so painful. Because Danny would go. Of course he would go. He wants to be brave. He wants to prove he is not helpless. He wants to understand Jason's world, even though he has no idea how brutal that world can actually be. And Charlotte? She has already lived too much instability. If she believes Valentine is in danger, she is not going to sit quietly and wait for the adults to fix everything. She is going to move. She is a Cassadine. That survival instinct is real. So both of them could end up in the same dangerous place, not because they planned the takedown, but because someone manipulated their love for their fathers. And that someone could be Brennan. Now, here is where Kai comes in. And this is where I start yelling internally. What if Kai notices something is wrong? Maybe Danny is acting strange. Maybe Charlotte disappears. Maybe Kai catches part of a message. or sees them leaving separately, and he gets that gut feeling that something is off, and instead of ignoring it, he follows. That would already make Kai feel different in this storyline. He is not a mastermind. He is not a spy. He is not part of Carly and Valentine's plan. He is just someone who cares enough to check. But in Port Charles, caring gets you in trouble every single time. So Kai follows the trail and finds Danny and Charlotte cornered by Brennan. Now, again, I am speaking hypothetically here, but imagine the visual. Danny trying to stand in front of Charlotte. Charlotte trying to stay calm, even though she is terrified. Brennan, calm, cold, and totally in control. And Kai walks in with no real understanding of how deep this goes. He does not know all the WSB secrets. He does not know the full history between Brennan and Valentine. He does not know every layer of Jason's situation. He just sees two young people in danger. And that is enough. This is where the theory becomes really twisted. What if Brennan is not surprised to see Kai? What if Brennan actually planned for someone like Kai to show up? I know, that sounds evil. But this is Brennan we are talking about. If the show wants to make him truly dangerous, they could reveal that he is not just trying to threaten Danny and Charlotte. He is trying to create a scene, a setup, a trap that continues even if he loses control. What if Brennan's goal is to make his enemies look guilty? If he can make it appear that Charlotte was used by Valentine, or Danny was influenced by Jason, then Brennan can turn the whole situation into a political and legal nightmare. And if a shooting happens, even better for him. That is the sick part. What if Brennan puts a gun into the situation on purpose? What if he pushes Kai emotionally? What if he threatens Danny and Charlotte just enough to make Kai panic? And what if Kai, believing he has no other choice, fires? I would lose my mind. Because that would not be a simple murder story. That would be a tragedy. Kai would not be acting out of hatred. He would not be trying to execute Brennan. He would be scared. He would be overwhelmed. He would be trying to stop something terrible from happening. But the result could still be fatal. And that is where General Hospital could create a seriously dramatic aftermath. Because if Brennan dies, the question would not simply be who shot him. The answer would be obvious. Kai did. The bigger question would be who forced Kai into that moment? And that is where the story could become addictive. Because the evidence might not support Kai's version. Maybe the camera footage only shows Kai entering and firing. Maybe the audio is missing. Maybe Brennan arranged the room so it looks like Danny and Charlotte were part of a setup. Maybe there are fake messages connecting the whole thing back to Jason and Valentine. Can you imagine the panic? Kai says he was protecting them. Danny and Charlotte back him up. But the WSB says, no, this was an assassination. Oh, I would be furious. And honestly, I would also be completely hooked. Because suddenly, everyone is trapped. Kai becomes the accidental shooter. Danny becomes the witness with a motive. Charlotte becomes the Cassadine daughter who was found at the scene. Valentine becomes the obvious suspect behind the scenes. Jason becomes the father whose son was involved. Carly becomes the woman who already wanted Brennan stopped. It is messy. It is unfair. It is dramatic. It is exactly the kind of soap nightmare that makes me scream at the screen while still pressing play on the next episode. And let's talk about Danny for a second, because this could be huge for his character. Danny has been carrying so much anger. He wants to understand Jason. He wants to be brave. He may even think danger is something he can handle because his father handles it all the time. But if he watches Kai shoot Brennan, even in self-defense, that could completely change Danny's view of Jason's world. Because violence is not glamorous when you are standing right there. It is not cool. It is not heroic. It is trauma. And Danny could realize, maybe for the first time, that being Jason Morgan's son does not mean he should become Jason Morgan. That would be powerful. And Charlotte? I worry about her even more, because Charlotte already has that Cassadine shadow around her. If she believes her actions helped bring Kai into this, she could blame herself. She could shut down. Or worse, she could become colder. more strategic, more determined never to be used again. And Valentine would absolutely lose it. I can already imagine Valentine trying to protect Charlotte, but every move he makes only makes him look guiltier. That is so Valentine coded it hurts. He would be trying to save his daughter, and somehow he would accidentally make the WSB think he orchestrated the whole thing. Carly would probably be the first adult to say, wait a minute, this is too neat. And she would be right. Because if Brennan dies in a way that conveniently damages all his enemies, then maybe his death is not the end of his plan. Maybe it is the beginning of the final trap. That is the part I love about this theory. Brennan could become more dangerous dead than alive? I know that sounds dramatic, but come on, this is General Hospital. People leave behind secret files, hidden recordings, fake evidence, backup plans, mystery contacts, and digital bombs like they are packing snacks for a road trip. So if Brennan were to die, I would not believe for 1 second that he left nothing behind. There could be a file ready to expose Valentine. There could be a message framing Jason. There could be evidence that makes Kai look like a hired killer instead of a terrified young man. There could be something that pulls Jocelyn even deeper into WSB danger. And that would make Carly absolutely explode. Can you imagine Carly realizing that Brennan may have used Kai, Danny, and Charlotte as pawns? I would not want to be anywhere near that room. Carly would go from protective mother to full hurricane in about 3 seconds. And Jason would be quiet, which is always worse. He would look calm, but you know inside he would be blaming himself because Danny got pulled into this world. Danny got exposed to danger. Danny saw something no kid should see. That father-son fallout could be one of the strongest emotional parts of the whole story. But again, this is all speculation. That is important. Nothing about this theory should be treated like confirmed spoilers. This is a what-if scenario, a possible direction, a dramatic prediction based on where the emotional tensions could go. But as a theory, I think it has serious potential because it avoids the predictable route. It is not just Valentine takes down Brennan. It is not just Carly exposes Brennan. It is not just Danny and Charlotte act like mini versions of their fathers. Instead, it becomes a story about manipulation, panic, guilt, and how adult secrets destroy the young people standing too close to them. And that, to me, feels much more explosive. So, here is my big question. Could General Hospital really take Kai, a character who might seem outside the main spy war chessboard, and make him the one who accidentally changes the entire game? Because if Kai shoots Brennan while trying to save Danny and Charlotte, that would be shocking. But if Brennan arranged the whole situation so Kai would look guilty, that would be diabolical. And I hate it, and I love it, and I would absolutely be seated for the fallout. So tell me, am I the only one who thinks this could be a wild twist? Or would this be too dark, too messy, and too much for Kai, Danny, and Charlotte? Because personally, I think if General Hospital wants a storyline that nobody is talking about yet, this could be it. Not because Brennan simply dies, but because his possible death could become his final weapon.